Would you have some examples or stories to share, Philippe, where you've made a significant difference to that moment of insight? You've reframed the
Mm.
coachee's perspective.
I can think of another example, and a more recent example where uh, I didn't have the permission to this person to give her example. So I will call her Annie, let's say. That is not
Okay.
her real name. But in her case, she was a senior leader in a company in Europe, and a hardworking person, smart person, hardworking person, but was seen sometimes as a too demanding by other people. She was an American living here in Belgium. Also, sometimes there would be difficulties to adjust to this context here, this cultural context, and a lot of stress also for her. So we embarked on a journey. We worked for a year together, and in fact, I had the chance then to work again for a few months afterwards with her. The learning took place at different times. One was very much applying the global coaching approach. One was at a physical level to take better care of herself, to sleep more, to give herself the permission to sleep more, to go back to some sports routine. In her case, including some bicycling, for example, that she started to do again. So she was already in better shape, less stressed out simply from that. But then also from a managerial perspective, learning to use people working for her, I mean use in a positive sense, in a better way, to know how to delegate the work, but you cannot delegate immediately. You need to do that gradually to establish trust. She was able to learn that. From a political standpoint, she was able to build alliances. In this organization, very much a matrix organization, she needed to be able to build those relationships in order to gain some influence and to make an impact in her project. And that's what she learned to do. And so that was also, that made a big difference for her. From a cultural perspective, she became aware of some of our cultural inclinations, so that she wouldn't fall prey to that. So, for example, learning to let go, as opposed to wanting to be in control all the time. Learning to let go, learning to slow down, to take the time, learning to be a bit more indirect in her communication, more particularist, more flexible as well. And so those were learnings. And the spiritual perspective, that was not necessarily part of the conversation from the beginning, but that became part of the conversation later on. Meaning, purpose, those questions came to the fore as we had more and more conversations. So that became a topic for her. Also, she was lacking in self-confidence, actually. You wouldn't see that necessarily, but learning to be more confident and more accepting of herself. So there was a psychological developmental journey as well. Building emotional intelligence was part of that. So you see, it's not one moment of insight.
Correct.
It's a whole journey. And that is actually typically what would happen, that when I would work with somebody, it's not just that one insight, but it's a gradual process where you learn along the way.